All right, so today we are doing the second day of dividing radicals, and this day focuses on having a little more complex of a denominator. So the way that we're going to get the radicals out of the denominator is by using the conjugate, and the conjugate is the denominator with the middle side, sorry, I should erase, denominator with the middle sign changed. So if it's a plus in between, it becomes a minus. If it's a minus in between, it becomes a plus. So let's dive right into it with number 1. On this one, our denominator is 1 plus the square root of 3. So I can't just multiply by root 3 over root 3 because then the denominator wouldn't go away. On this one, we have to multiply by the denominator. The radical wouldn't go away in the denominator, sorry. So we're going to multiply by 1 minus root 3. So everything stays the same except for the middle sign switches. Today we are doing a whole bunch of FOILing and distributing. So if we look at the numerator first, we're going to take this -4 and distribute it to both. Sorry, to positive 4. So 4 times 1 is 4, and 4 times negative root 3 is -4 root 3. All right, remember, not 4 times 3 because 4 is outside, 3 is inside. So then in the denominator, we really are going to FOIL. So we have 1 times 1, which is 1, and 1 times negative root 3, which is negative root 3. Then we have root 3 times 1, which is a positive root 3, and positive root 3 times negative root 3, which ends up giving us the negative square root of 9. Now, in every single one of these problems, this should happen. Hopefully we notice something about our denominator. The middle two end up canceling. That should happen every single time you do the conjugate. If it doesn't, then we did something wrong. Okay, so in the denominator we actually have 1 minus, and if we look, the square root of 9 is 3. So now if we rewrite it, we have 4 minus 4 root 3 over 1 minus 3, and 1 minus 3 is -2. Right? Now, at this point, we talked about this before a little bit. If we notice, all 3 of the outside numbers, all 3, it has to be all 3, are all divisible by a -2. So we are going to divide it by -2. So we get -2 plus 2 root 3. Now you can put it over 1, but again, remember, we don't need that 1 as a placeholder. So that's the main thing that we're doing today. So we're going to look at another example that's similar. We have 2 divided by 5 minus the square root of 7. So again, we're going to multiply by the conjugate, which is the same thing as the denominator, but the middle sign is changed. Instead of 5 minus root 7, it's 5 plus root 7. So we start by multiplying by 2. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times root 7 is 2 root 7. Then we have our denominator. Again, we are going to FOIL. So 5 times 5, 25. 5 root 7. And then we have a -5 root 7 and a negative square root of 49. So again, at this point, we notice that the middle two cancel, and we are left with 25 minus the square root of 49, which is 7. So now all we have to do is rewrite it. I'm going to rewrite it down here. We have 10 plus 2 root 7, and then 25 minus 7 gives me 18. Once again, we actually are able to reduce this one. You're not always going to be able to reduce, but again, we have a 10, a 2, and an 18 all on the outside. Again, you do need to be able to divide all 3 in order to reduce. But all of these are divisible by 2, so this becomes 5 plus 1 root 7, and remember, we don't need to write the 1, over 9. All right, so getting into the next one, On this one, if you notice, there's a little bit more going on because there's a 5 in front of the root 2, and there's actually a root 2 in the numerator. But we're going to do the same thing. Now, in the past, a lot of us would think, just from yesterday, that we can divide the root 2 and the root 10 to simplify. But the problem is, it's not just a root 10 in the denominator, it's an 8 plus root 10. So be very careful about simplifying, because I cannot simplify that just yet. So at this point, we are going to multiply the numerator and denominator by the conjugate. So 8 minus the square root of 10. Do what we've been doing on the last two problems. So this time, 5 root 2 times 8. Remember, multiply the outside. So 5 times 8 is 40. And then we keep the root 2. Then we have 5 times negative root 10, 5 root 2 times negative root 10. So negative 5, because it would be 5 times negative 1. And then the square root of 2 times the square root of 10, which is the square root of 20. Then we move on to our denominator. Again, we're going to FOIL. 8 times 8 is 64. 8 times root 10 is negative 8 root 10. Then we have a positive 8 root 10. And then a negative square root of 100. As always, our denominator, our middle two cancel. So we're left with 64 minus 10 in our denominator. At this point, I'll rewrite it over here. We have 40 root 2 minus 5 root 20 over 54. Now on this one, we cannot reduce anything with the 54 because the 40, the 5, and the 54 are not all divisible by something. But there is something that we can do. Hopefully we notice that we have the square root of 20. Square root of 20 is a bigger root, so we need to make sure that we can or cannot break that down. So if we look at that, that's 4 times 5, 2 times 2. So that actually is 4 root 5. So if we rewrite this, we have 40 root 2 minus 5 times our new square root of 20, which is 2 root 5. I think I said 4 root 5, I meant root 5, all over 54. Now again, still not totally cleaned up, so we're going to take a second and clean it up a little bit more. We have 40 root 2 minus, and now we can multiply 5 times 2, which is 10, root 5 for 54. Now at this point, we can see that we can reduce. The 40, the 10, and the 54 are all divisible by 2. So our final answer would be 20 root 2 minus 5 root 5, all over 27. The biggest thing with these problems is just to slow yourself down, because there are a lot of different simplifying things that need to happen. You just got to always check and see if you have something to simplify. All right, so looking at number 4, again, I cannot simplify the 6 and the 3 right away because there's more going on than just multiplying. There's that plus and minus. So make sure that you do not try and cancel that right away. We're going to multiply by the conjugate to start. And I'll make a little thing so we don't get confused. All right, so on this one, we are going to distribute and FOIL in the numerator and denominator. So in the numerator, we have 6 times 3, which is 18. And then 6 times root 5, which is 6 root 5. Then we distribute the root 2, so we have 3 root 2. And then root 2 times root 5 is root 10. Our denominator, we have 3 times 3, which is 9. 3 times 5, which is 3 root 5. And then we have negative 3 root 5 and negative square root of 25. As always, those two cancel. You're left with 9 minus 5, which ends up being 4 in our denominator. At this point, all we have to do is see if we can combine any like terms in the numerator. We actually can't. in reality, you can rewrite these in a different order. I am not overly picky with it. I feel like for now we can just keep it the way that it is. But you can rewrite those in really any order that you would want that makes sense to you. Maybe flip the root 5 and the root 2 just so that it's in increasing order, but this one's totally fine. Okay, again, I cannot simplify anything in here because we have 18, 4, 6, 3, and a 1, right? So none of those are all divisible by the same thing other than 1. So that's our final answer. All right, we have one last problem. It's a very similar problem to what we just did. So again, we are going to multiply by the conjugate. So we have root 2 minus root 6. We distribute our 4 first. So we have 4 root 2 minus 4 root 6. Then we distribute the negative square root of 11, which is negative square root of 22, and positive square root of 66. And we have our denominator, root 2 times root 2. I'm just going to keep these all as square roots. It's the square root of 4. Then we have root 2 times negative root 6, which is negative root 12. Then we have a positive root 12. Then we have a negative square root of 36. Again, middle 2 cancel. You are left with 2 minus 6 in the denominator, which is negative 4. Looking at our numerator, we actually cannot simplify any of that. So we're just going to rewrite it exactly how it is. Now, sometimes you can simplify the numerator a little bit more and combine like terms, but this one we cannot. So we leave it as our final answer. You could try to break down 22 or 66, but you would end up getting things that are not able to be simplified or broken down. So we have to leave it the way it is. Okay, so this was our main focus on today, was multiplying by the conjugate and kind of just simplifying things and whatnot. So at this point, you can go onto your Microsoft Forms and complete those questions. And you are done with this mini unit of radicals that we were talking about. So good luck on your Microsoft Forms, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.